Testing. Yes.
Sisters and brothers.
We had a bunch here.
And I forget we changed it to something. But it's like siblings in spirit or something. Yes, I am. Hey, do you remember? from the poet Sharon Olds. Dear Dirt, I'm sorry I slighted you. I thought that you were only the background for the leading characters, the plants and animals and human animals. It's as if I had loved only the stars and not the sky which gave them space in which to shine. Subtle, various, sensitive, you are the skin of our terrain. You, our democracy. When I understood I had never honored you as a living equal, I was ashamed of myself, as if I had not recognized a character who looked so different from me. But now I can see us all, made of the same basic materials, cousins of that first exploding from nothing, in our intricate equation together. Oh, dirt, help us find ways to serve your life. You who have brought us forth and fed us, and who at the end will take us in and rotate with us and wobble and orbit in the spirit of that which feeds us and which in the end will take us in. Let us worship together. And good morning. Welcome to worship at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greensboro. I'm the Reverend Sadie Lansdale, and I'm the minister of this church. Unitarian Universalists believe that each person has a trustworthy relationship with the Spirit, with the Holy, with the source of all life, with what some call God, though we name it and know it differently from one another. And we believe that because we are interconnected, no one is free until we all are free. So we strive to build beloved community here on earth, in our fellowship with one another, and in our work for justice. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, and all loved. Our ministry team here at UUCG is Cindy Dillard, our Director of Children's and Youth Ministry, Luke Steichleather, our Experimental Director of Music, Julie Hamilton, our Congregational Administrator, and me. Should you have your phone on in church? Make a noise. Should you take your mask off? Where are we having coffee? So both inside and outside. I think we'll serve it from inside, and you have the option, as always, to drink coffee after the service outside, especially on days when it's so lovely. If you have a joy or a sorrow to share in our prayers of the people, you can write it down on the yellow card that's in your order of service. And there are pencils in the back if you need those. And pass it up during the opening hymn. The ushers will collect it. You can also light a candle of remembrance at any time during the music in the service. If you're online and you'd like to get more connected, you can go ahead and click the link in the description of this YouTube video and let us know how we can connect with you. If you're in person, you can visit our visitors table, or of course you can go on our website. If you're in person, though, you can also stick around for our post-worship reflection, which is a great way to get to know other folks in the community and share or reflect silently on what our service has touched in your life. So if you're joining us online, go ahead and say hello in the chat. If you're joining us in the sanctuary, won't you wave hello to everybody joining us online. So we are an intentionally all ages community, joyfully and purposefully, and sometimes stuff happens. And one of the things that has happened is that our nursery care providers are not here today. So what this means is that those in our community who would normally be in nursery care are invited to be in the sanctuary as they and or their parents wish. And so it just might be a little squirmier in here, or maybe not. And sometimes it's the adults who are doing it, so, you know. All of our stages in life, all of our varied needs, and all of the experiences we bring here together are welcome and holy, and it is beautiful to be together.
My name is Linda Sullivan, and I am a member of this church. I invite Judy Horn forward to light our chalice. Please join me in our chalice lighting words found in your order of service. We light this chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, to remind us to connect in spirituality and service, to care for each other and the world, and to create loving community. A covenant contains the promises we make to one another in response to the great gift of living, holding ourselves to these holy aspirations. Will you join me in our church covenant? We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greensboro, do covenant to promote a search for personal meaning, respecting the individual truth in a community process of quest, speak and act with caring, courtesy, and love, thereby maintaining emotional, physical, and spiritual safety for all. Support UUCG and denominational efforts with our resources. Combat injustice while promoting equality. Nurture our children on their spiritual journey. Hold ourselves to this covenant, especially during times of conflict and disagreement.
Our opening hymn today is hymn number 1023 in the Teal Hymnal, Building Bridges. We're going to sing it through in unison once, and then we're going to sing it as a round twice. This side of the room, follow Phoenix and whoever else is over there. This side of the room, follow whoever's over here. We'll come in second. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me?
We gather in gratitude this morning, turning our hearts to thanks and praise for the gift of living, in the presence of the Spirit that animates all life, and in the knowledge that we are powerfully, profoundly connected to all that is, all that has been, and all that will be. During these few minutes of silence, you can focus on something you're grateful for, someone you're remembering especially today, or just the sensation of your chair supporting you. Will you find a comfortable place in your seat and take a few easy breaths as we settle into our shared silence together? Our guest pianist today and guest choir director is Lynn Hessler. And Lynn says, "Hello, my UU family. I recently moved from Phoenix, Arizona to Greensboro. To be welcomed and embraced by UU family is my joy." I was the pianist for the UU Church of Phoenix for 9 years. Lynn, we're so glad you're with us, and we hold you in your joy at moving in our hearts. Ron Ticheri says that joy in getting to spend an afternoon with my last living aunt, Eva, who at 92 is in Austin, Texas. We hold you and your aunt in our hearts. I invite you now to offer the names of those people on your hearts, living or dead, near or far, that this community might hold them in prayer and in love. You can type them in the comments if you're joining us online, and you can speak them now. Would someone go and light a candle for the joys and sorrows of everybody joining us online? Thank you. We want to bring y'all with us in here. Our Jewish, Unitarian, Universalist friends and Jewish siblings in faith have just concluded their celebration of Passover, and so in their honor, I offer you this prayer by Alla Bosarth Campbell, Passover Remembered. Pack nothing. Bring only your determination to serve, your willingness to be free. Don't wait for the bread to rise. Take nourishment for the journey, but eat standing. Be ready to move at a moment's notice. Do not hesitate to leave your old ways behind. Fear, silence, submission, only surrender to the need of the time, to love justice and walk humbly with your God. Do not take time to explain to the neighbors. Tell only a few trusted friends and family members. Then begin quickly before you have time to sink back into the old slavery. Set out in the dark. I will send fire to warm and encourage you. I will be with you in the fire, and I will be with you in the cloud. You will learn to eat new food and find refuge in new places. I will give you dreams in the desert to guide you safely to that place you have not yet seen. The stories you tell one another around the fires in the dark will make you strong and wise. Outsiders will attack you, and some follow you, and at times you will get weary and turn on each other from fear and fatigue and forgetfulness. You have been preparing for this for hundreds of years. I am sending you into the wilderness to make a new way and to learn my ways more deeply. Some of you will be so changed by weathers and wanderings that even your closest friends will have to learn your features as though for the first time. Some of you will not change at all. Some will be honored by your dearest loves and misunderstood by those who have known you since birth and feel abandoned by you. Some will find new friendships in unlikely faces, and old friends as faithful and true as the pillar of God's flame. Sing songs as you go and hold close together. You may at times grow confused and lose your way. Continue to call each other by the names I have given you to help remember who you are. You will get where you're going by remembering who you are. Touch each other and keep telling the stories. Make maps as you go, remembering the way back from before you were born. So you will be only the first of many waves of deliverance on these desert seas. It is the first of many beginnings, your Paschal tide. Remain true to this mystery. Pass on the whole story. Do not go back. I am with you now, and I am waiting for you. In this poem, I hear freedom and community and the courage to move forward to places we cannot yet see. Trust in the unfolding, even though there is much that is not trustworthy. So we ask these things for ourselves, for those we love, and for those we do not love. Amen. In our singing meditation, we sing the things we often cannot say, our prayers and yearnings, our heartbreak and our hope. Please stay seated and sing from your heart in our gray hymnal number 123, Spirit of Life. The story goes that sometime in the 1980s, Christ the King Catholic Church in San Diego had a problem. Outside their church stood a statue of Jesus with his arms stretched wide as if in an embrace. And one day the churchgoers looked up to find that the hands of the statue had come clean off.
Maybe someone had cut the hands off. Maybe someone had kicked a soccer ball really hard, and it bounced around a lot, knocking both hands off. It didn't really matter how the hands came off. The important thing was, this statue of Jesus definitely had no hands, and it definitely used to.
So the parishioners thought and thought about how they could fix it.
We could try to hire a sculptor to make new hands for it, but that's too expensive. We would rather use that money for other things, like money for our youth group or for more musicians.
Well, I think somewhere in the church we have that creepy fake hand that the youth like to play with. But I know it really freaks people out, and plus I only have one that I found in the church closet.
We could make paper mache hands, but they're really messy, and besides, they disintegrate in the rain.
Do any of you have any ideas about how to replace the hands on this statue? Yeah, you've heard the story before, Ron. Well, Ron says our hands. You know, Ron, you're not the only person who had this idea. The story goes that as a joke, someone stood behind the statue, put their arms out so it looked like their hands were the hands of the statue.
And someone else said, well, hang on a minute. That's a great idea.
Does anyone here have hands? Yeah? Do they jazz?
That's exactly what they did. They put out a sign that said, "I have no hands but yours."
And this sign reminded them and anyone who passed by that the work of love and power in the world was theirs to do, that it was theirs to care for all they met, to feed the hungry, to tend the sick, to fight injustice, and to spread love wherever they went. The end. right? Our children, 4th grade and under, are invited to go with their teachers and floaters to play. Religious exploration classes for all will begin at 11:15. So let's sing them out. Go in peace, go in love, go in joy. Go ahead, y'all. Go in peace, go in peace, go in peace, amen, amen. Go in love, go in love, go in love, amen, amen. Go in joy. Yes. Many reasons that we're thrilled to have you with us today, Lynn. So the story you heard today, I know some of you have heard before. Oh. No, I totally did. You did it right. But I was wondering if someone was going to have a better idea than like paper mache hands. So I made all those things up, all those ideas about what they could do. That's like my embellishment. And there are versions of this story all over God's green internet. Some of them locate the statue in Europe. They claim that the hands fell off after bombing in World War II. Then there are sources that dispute those claims, saying that there's no evidence at all of that happening in any of those small cities in Europe cited as the source of the story. But there is a church in San Diego, and the difference is that when the story takes place in small cities in Europe, it is bombs from World War II that knock the hands off. And when the story takes place in San Diego, which as far as I can tell is the thing that actually happened, the hands came off because of people who chopped them off. And I don't know, and it's like, I have been thinking about why didn't they just tell the San Diego one? Why they got to put it in Europe? And I wonder if it makes it seem kind of cleaner or something. I mean, there is a way that the violence of war actually seems cleaner to us than the violence of vandalism, which is a big problem. Right? As if somehow the conditions that make people want to go around breaking stuff are not also violent. Poverty and a school-to-prison pipeline, over-policing, hunger, fear, and being blamed for everything bad that ever happens to you, which is the condition of anyone below the poverty line in this country, certainly. I think, though, it has to do with the source of violence. The reason they move that story around has to do with trying to locate violence in a way that's more, appropriate? I'm not sure. Which is sort of ridiculous. This is a statue of Jesus, a person who was executed by the state and then celebrated for rising again, right? So I don't know why there is this attempt to remove violence, but it really does feel like that in all the source material for this story. To remove or otherwise relocate or sanitize the violence at the heart of this story, and also the violence at the heart, or at least close to the heart, of what it means to be human. There's a really easy reading of this story that's just a reminder to Christians in particular to do things instead of just believe things. And you sort of read it and you're like, yeah, that old chestnut, I know we're supposed to go do it. Right? I mean, you read the blurb, yeah. Like, skip church today. I know what she's going to say. She's going to say we should do stuff. Yeah, well, there are lots of reasons to be here that are not primarily about the things that come out of my mouth. But though, this story prompts some meaningful reflection about what we call violence. So Friedrich Engels calls poverty social murder, describes Things like, I don't think he would have put it this way in the 19-whenevers, but things like, dying because you can't afford your insulin as social murder. Not like person-to-person death, but the early death of a lot of people caused by the hoarding of resources and the scarcity produced thereby could be seen as kind of acts of God or a fact of society or the way that it is. And another way of looking at that is that too is violence. It is something called social murder. Add to this, right? I mean, the statue has no hand but yours. Well, our hands are certainly not clean. Unitarian Universalists are not, as a body, Christians anymore. But I think around Easter, it is also important to remember the history of Christian anti-Semitism, the occasion of Easter as an opportunity to persecute Jews, to use the story of the execution of Jesus as a pretext for the persecution of Jews. And as Unitarian Universalists, some of whom are of Jewish descent, but most of whom are not, this is ours too. This is our history too. Our hands are in this too. Right? So it's true that love has no hands but ours, which is sort of the easy, yeah, go be the hands of love, whatever. Right? But evil has no hands but ours either. And this is what it means to be human. The Irish poet and peace activist Padraig Ó Tuama writes about an Irish word that I will not disrespect by mispronouncing it off the top of my head, but it's a word that means shelter. There's an Irish proverb that says people live in the shelter of each other. He tells us in his book, In the Shelter, this word also means shadow. People live in the shadow of each other too. And so what is offered to us by process theology, by the understanding that if we are created in the image of the divine, if there is something divinely inspired, if there's the creative spark of life inside each of us and all of us, if we're created in the image of the divine, then we co-create with the divine too, right? Do you follow that? So this is sort of semantics sometimes, but also for me, kind of a really meaningful way forward into conversations about theology that I, for a long time, thought that I, as a Unitarian Universalist, was excluded from. So the idea is God is a creative power. If we are made in the image of God, we too are a creative power, right? So we participate, we co-create with the eternal, and we have free will. So the loving and powerful choices are offered out to us, but it is up to us to take the hand that's offered. It is up to us to make the choice toward more powerful love in the world. Process theology scholars can fight me on if I got that right, I guess, but for my purposes and in the purposes of allowing this kind of theological thinking to illuminate my life, try to understand myself as someone who is partnering with the creative power in the world, right? I participate in it, and it's much bigger than I am. So in order for us to partner with this divine creative power in the world, to find it within ourselves, to grow communities where we can really tend it and nurture it, to pursue being shelter for one another and not shadow, right? As best we can to pursue being the hands of love and power in the world and not the hands of evil for each other. What are we supposed to do? There is a Hebrew word, sometimes translated as righteousness, which I gotta tell you, when I hear the word righteousness, I just immediately check out, because I'm just it's just he was a righteous man. And I'm all right, don't talk to me. I have one of my like major flaws is I have like a pretty self-righteous side, and it's super annoying to myself, to those who love me, and probably to any of you who've encountered it. I don't think that is the way forward when we're looking for love and power, right? Like righteousness, I think, at least in the way that word lives in our conversations, that's not it. This word, though, tzedakah, is also translated as solidarity. Oh, that's interesting, right? So, my Old Testament professor, David Carr, he basically was like, if you learn one thing from this class, let it be this. The Hebrew Bible commands to righteousness are not about getting it right and getting it wrong. They're fundamentally relational, right? Righteousness is like, at the end of the day, I just look at my checkbox of all the things I did. I'm like, am I a good person? I recycled or whatever, right? Did I get it right? And this is what this does for us, I think, is it just furthers this amazing lie of individualism in a way that isolates us from one another and actually gets in the way of our power together. But solidarity is profoundly relational. I guess you could be righteous, like alone in your house. Solidarity, though, living in solidarity with one another, and most particularly trying to live in solidarity with those who are most cast out, is a profoundly relational act. No one is alone. We take turns being with each other, we visit each other, we tend each other, we grow and strengthen the fabric of community together. And if our compasses are set to true north, the kind of community that we grow together is the kind that has at the heart of it this creative power where life seeks life. A friend of mine talks about conspiring with the eternal. We, in our bodies, in all of their glorious variation, conspire with the eternal, to witness for one another, to be present for one another, to build power together. I don't think, actually, it is enough for us to think about being the hands of love in the world. That seems too much like what you're supposed to do is sit in your house and have nice feelings, which is, I think, not the call for faithful people who are trying to meet the challenges of a complicated, isolating age, right? What we're trying to do, actually, is to be the hands of loving power. This is how to be the hands of the holy for and with one another. Perhaps you have heard that we plant trees whose fruit we'll never eat, and we drink from wells we did not dig. We sit underneath the shade of trees that we did not plant. When I think about God, when I think about the biggest and loving power that I can imagine, the one that we come from and the one that we're all pulled back into eventually, I think about dirt. I think about compost. It is said that compost needs 4 things. There are 4 ingredients. Am I doing something wrong? Is this annoying to y'all? I know this, yeah. All right, I'll keep going. Compost has 4 ingredients. Do you know what they are? Someone said carbon, water, air. Someone said oxygen, air. Compost doesn't need sun. Yeah, bacteria. Dirt. Well, it produces dirt. It doesn't need dirt. It gets you dirt. Nitrogen, carbon. Someone said organic matter. I mean, that's like, that's the stuff in there. Nitrogen, carbon, air, and water. Of course, though, there is a 5th ingredient, which is time. I go into my compost bin and I open the little thing and I look in there and I'm like, are you dirt yet? I need more dirt. And it takes the time it takes, right? We conspire with the eternal in this process of making something beautiful out of pain, in this process of creating and co-creating the kind of community with life at its heart, out of sometimes the raw materials and the cast-offs of things we don't want to do anymore. And with the right conditions, tended lovingly, something is built and created, or even it's like, those are too active of words, you know, something kind of happens that is nourishing and powerful, the source of life itself, participation in the process of decomposition and regeneration. From these raw materials, some of which are garbage, comes life and nourishment for life. And even the kind of power that, given enough time, can transform death. There is something about the composting process that I think provides a way forward for us if we are trying to be the hands of the holy in the world, if we are trying to be the hands of loving power in the world. You know, it is a persistent, patient, gentle, active, nourishing process that doesn't smell as bad as you think it's going to. And from something like that we all come, and to something like that we all return. May it be so for you, and so for us all. Amen. We rise in body or in spirit. For a musical response, in your gray hymnal, number 121, We'll Build a Land. I want to note to you that our hymnal says sisters and brothers. We're going to say siblings in spirit instead. So we just repeat that with me. Siblings in spirit. Siblings in spirit. Say it 5 times. All right, one day they'll rewrite the hymnal, but until that day, we're doing our part. Rise in body or in spirit for 121. will have heard the word righteousness in that song. The lyrics from that hymn come from Amos, I think. And we can hear it as oaks in solidarity instead. Wonder what that says to us.
One of the ways that we live out our mission to create loving community is to contribute financially to the ministries of this congregation and to do the good work of our community partners. One of the ministries of this church is our Minister's Discretionary Fund, which is available to anyone in a tough spot. We can help with medical bills, rent, groceries, or other needs. Reverend Sadie's email and phone number are on the back of your order of service, or you can contact the church through our website. The Hyatt Street neighbors live in a trailer park in the Lindley Park neighborhood of Greensboro. They go to school with us, they work and live and commute alongside of us. They are our neighbors. After almost 9 months of struggling to find a solution that would allow them to stay in their homes, they are being forced to relocate. Through organizing, advocacy, and throwing great parties, they have managed to win more time in the homes they have loved. In response to their organizing, the City of Greensboro has created a mass displacement fund. This fund could possibly offer up to $10,000 in relocation assistance, and relocation of a trailer could cost more than $15,000 per family. We can help. Our Jewish siblings in faith and Jewish Unitarian Universalists have just concluded their celebration of Passover, a holiday that commemorates bondage and liberation, great courage, picking up and moving on. We can ease the burden for our neighbors on Hyatt Street in their coming exodus. If you'd like to be a part of this rising, if you'd like to make a contribution for our offering to be split with Hyatt neighbors, you can do so at the link in the description of this video. You can also mail a check. Ushers will come forward to collect the offering, which will now be gratefully received.
world. Yeah, so listen up. In your attempts this week to be the hands of the holy for one another and for the world, to be loving power for one another and for the flourishing of life, remember to get your hands in the dirt, where we come from and where we will all eventually return. Go in peace. Amen. You can place your hands over your hearts as we sing our benediction hymn, Shalom Havarim. This is a Hebrew song that means peace, dear friends. Until we meet again, we'll sing it twice.